The deal is sealed. Ukraine and the United States came to an agreement on minerals. Another topic, Ukraine retaliates as Kremlin claims 128 drones attack Russia overnight. And the Blitz interview with a great speaker, founder and director of Razom We Stand Fund, Svetlana Romanko. Good afternoon, my name is Henrik Keen and we are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Ukraine has reached an agreement with the US on a minerals deal. Olha Stevanishina, Ukraine's deputy prime minister and justice minister, told the Financial Times on February 25th. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's office confirmed the information to the Kyiv independent media that an agreement has been reached. The negotiations around the deal have fueled tensions between US President Donald Trump and Zelenskyy in the past week, to say the least, leading that far for Trump to call Zelenskyy a dictator. The Financial Times reports that Ukraine has secured more favorable terms now during the negotiations and is framing the deal as a way to strengthen ties with the US. The final version of the agreement, dated February 24th, establishes a fund to which Ukraine will contribute 50% of proceeds from the future monetization of state-owned minerals resources, including oil, gas, and related logistics. The fund will invest in projects within Ukraine. Ukraine's cabinet of ministers is expected to recommend on February 26th that the deal to be signed. Sources familiar with the discussions told Bloomberg. Zelenskyy will likely head to Washington for a signing ceremony in the coming days or weeks. The signing could come as early as February 28th, actually, a senior Ukrainian official reports told AFP. Trump also told that. He told reporters a couple of days ago that Zelenskyy will visit the White House for signing ceremony on February 28th. The deal excludes resources that already contribute to Ukraine's state budget. That is important, meaning it will not cover operations by Naftogaz and Ukrnafta, the country's largest oil and gas producers. This is good news for Ukraine. Bad news, the agreement does not include in any way security guarantees from the United States, which Kyiv had initially insisted on. So when asked what Ukraine gets out of that deal, Trump said Ukraine receives military equipment and the right to fight on. Well, thank you, but it's not clear whether military equipment in this instance refers to previously shipped weapons or future aid to Kyiv. But Trump said ongoing weapons shipments to Kyiv could go forward for a while, maybe until we have a deal with Russia. So the latest draft of the agreement drops earlier US demands for $500 billion claim over Ukraine's natural resources, which had been a major sticking point, according to the Ukrainian media outlet Economic Pravda, which has seen the agreement. Under the revised terms now, the fund will receive 50% of revenues from Ukraine's resource-related infrastructure, including ports. Joint ownership will be determined based on actual financial contributions. However, management will be shared. The US will have decision-making authority under its own laws. The questions of the US stake in the fund and the terms of joint ownership, whatever that means, will be addressed in follow-up agreements, according to the Financial Times. But Zelenskyy had previously rejected the US proposal, citing the lack of security guarantees and objecting to the 1-to-2 repayment structure, which would have required Ukraine to return $2 for every $1 received in aid. The Trump administration has increased pressure in Ukraine to finalize the deal in the past weeks, with Trump publicly attacking Zelenskyy, as I said, calling him a dictator without elections and urging him to move fast or he won't have a country left. Trump has framed the agreement as a way to strengthen Ukraine's economy while ensuring the US recoups tens of billions of dollars in military equipment sent to Ukraine. Well, what I like personally about all that is first Trump calls Zelenskyy a dictator and then still signs a deal with him. What if maybe, just maybe, in years to come, when Americans build all these labs and machinery and mines and start to get what they always want, billions in profits, Zelenskyy just comes out and says, sorry, I didn't even have a right to sign the deal, as I was a dictator. An illegitimate entity to a democratic state of Ukraine, and so the deal should be waived. What happens to all American investments then? But just asking. Boris Johnson called the deal extortion, but the extortion with good things in it for Ukraine. And the deal is necessary for us indeed. So we're signing it. Maybe the one and only example of righteous extortion ever. Russian forces claim to down 120 drones overnight on February 26 over several Russian regions in Russian-occupied Crimea, as the country's defense ministry says. They say they downed 83 drones over Krasnodar Krai and destroyed another 30 drones over Russian-occupied Crimea. 8 drones were downed over the Azov, while another 5 over the Black Sea. Russia also reportedly shot down 1 drone in Bryansk and another in Kursk Oblast. Residents reported explosions in the cities of Tuapse and Anapa in Krasnodar, while the airport in Sochi was closed due to a drone attack, the independent telegram channel Astra reports. Ukraine routinely launches deep strikes against military-industrial facilities in Russia, primarily relying on domestically developed drones. Obviously, so we're not asking anyone this time to do whatever we want to do. The Tuapse sea trade port was also hit. Let us just watch that beautiful scene for a moment, shall we? Kiev has particularly taken aim at Russia's fossil fuel infrastructure as part of its strategy to undermine funding for the Kremlin's war chest. And bit by bit, one oil refinery by another, we set ablaze here, burn there, we'll get there one day. What's that smoke on the horizon? Oh, that's Russian economy. Founder and director of Razom We Stand, Fund Svetlana Romanko kindly accepted an opportunity for a friendly conversation. Hello, Svetlana.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It is always an exquisite pleasure. First question, just help me to understand. I mean, sanctions, package number 16. What is it and why is it important? I mean, 16's before probably working more or less, now number 16. What is going to change?
Yes, there are some significant changes, which I would like to outline while speaking. But first is a very disappointing thing, which I have to tell first, because that's the absence of a full ban on Russian LNG, which is liquefied natural gas and overall gas pipeline as well. So we had high hopes that this will be implemented and embedded into the 16 sanction package, because it's high time. We had these packages. I mean, that 16 package, the action is significantly delayed. Yeah, it's so delayed. We couldn't see even 15 sanction package being properly implemented, because it just starts implementing since March this year, and we will be only able to see the effectiveness end of March the soonest. So it's just ridiculous, honestly. Just excuse my language, but that's ridiculous. Experts say, me included, that there are some measures that would actually strengthen the sanctions towards Russian oil and gas sector. For example, these are restrictions on Vostok oil and some LNG projects, which target its exploration and production. This expansion directly impacts major initiatives like the Vostok oil project, potentially hindering the progress by limiting access to essential resources. But it's not enough, of course. We have to look beyond. And I am afraid that we have a lot more work to do, including with diplomatic energy attaches. They sit in Brussels and they decide what sanctions will be imposed and what won't be imposed. So we have to do more work with Danish representation to the European Union, who takes the chairing the EU Council starting from June. Because as we've seen, Germany was powerful enough to block the full ban on Russian LNG in 16 sanction package. But of course, just my last point to your question, of course, sanctioning these 73 oil shadow fleet vessels is a positive step. And I made some assessment based on the calculations of our partners, Korea. And it's worth of 22 million of oil being caught from Russian exports, which is worth about 11 billion of euros, which is not bad. But China itself imports Russian oil for about 80 billions per year. So we see these numbers are not exactly that strong that we would like to see towards sanctioning Russian oil and gas.
Well, you mentioned ridiculous things there. Many ridiculous things happened recently, starting from Munich Security Conference, where I was present, to listening to J.D. Vance speech of parental advisory and all that things happening with Donald Trump.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a separate point of a discussion for an hour, maybe. We can do that sometime. But you mentioned also shadow fleet, like Russian shadow fleet. My personal question is there really any actual way to counter that? Why don't we just expropriate these vessels? Is that possible?
I wish. As a lawyer, I can tell that actually some enforcement, whatever the members of European Union agree, it could be made possible, actually. So they have to think of that. But knowing the process of the European countries approving something on the EU level, it's completely like long, extended, and not efficient. So I doubt that this will happen. But what can happen, so enforcement might be put in place, as it just happened in the Nordic countries when they stopped these vessels, checked the insurances, and just try to understand if they are a shadow fleet or they are not a shadow fleet. But of course, the EU decision to blacklist the 73 vessels is designed to disrupt the network facilitating unauthorized exports. But if we speak about the shadow fleet, it's still not enough because there are about 600 vessels that still await. Yeah, still await to be sanctioned. And if we wait until many packages from now, it will be way too late, especially given the geopolitical turmoil which is happening currently at the Munich Security Conference, as you mentioned. It's not a time to cry, I would say, as some politicians do. Nothing to cry about. It's just a time for bold measures trying to secure European energy independency and also cut the financial flows to Russia for the oil shadow fleets. Because being honest, it's the main source of Russian revenues. And of course, lowering the oil price cap would significantly help, because sanctioning vessels is not solving a root cause problem, which is actually high price for Russian oil and still a trade of Russian oil that was made possible.
Well, not a time to cry, absolutely. I'm on your side, I'm reading you, I couldn't agree more. A bit more talking about energy resources and fossil fuel, and to be honest, it's important to be honest, so if we are being honest to ourselves, we all, every single one of us has accepted money-praising social systems around us in every country. So we all accepted that, and as a general norm. Nothing personal, just business, that idiom, but we justified the dirty business deals at the cost of human values. It worked quite all right in usual times, but for some time, but in time of crisis, in times of war, we have bumped into that cadaver. It's an autopsy. These are our human values. They're almost dead internationally. Dead, and we have killed it on our own, foolishly creating a social phenomena. We have to deal with now on our own too, when money is valued more than human values. And this is why oil and gas from Russia will keep coming into European Union, no matter what. Money will breach any sanctions, creating as many loopholes as necessary. Would you agree to that?
No, I would strictly oppose that, because I am still an optimist. I'm the climate and energy optimist, and especially given that the clean energy, clean industry deal was just announced today within the EU, and they actually adopted 300 billion worth REPowerEU strategy to cut dependency on Russian gas. So I'm kind of optimist that European Union is still a place where human rights are being respected. I can agree with you that moral responsibility of U.S. companies is going to really vanish.
Right.
Vanish as long as the harmful autocratic transformation lasts, unfortunately. But we still have Europe to preserve. We still have European values to preserve. And as Ukraine, we share those values. And a last point on that we have to liberate ourselves of this hypocrisy of using fossil fuels and at the same time saying, okay, but you, European Union, you have to stop.
Absolutely.
As Ukraine, we also have to stop using fossil fuels because we see how easily autocratic and dictatorship regimes can manipulate.
Exactly.
Yes. So we have to really deploy renewable energy sources. It's not that expensive that it was 10 years ago. It's much cheaper. And sun and wind is for free, just to buy some equipment, which we are hopeful will be produced in Ukraine as well, that will strengthen our value chains for the world markets. So let's hope that we will repeat the really magic happening in Pakistan, which is also quite a poor country, developing country, but the interesting case, really. And I wish Ukraine could follow this case because the state has increased tariffs for electricity like 10%, 10 times off. Tenfold, and people who were not really able to pay to afford this electricity, they started to deploy much cheaper renewable energy, smart microgrids, trying to unite a few households. And now they are having energy with no access to grids. They are not paying oligarchs. They are not paying fossil fuel dictators. They're just happy, and we can be as happy as they are if we will repeat that deployment. And of course, if we could win the war and defeat Russian fossil fuels.
No, Svetlana, I just love your optimism. And the reason that I asked my question, it was a green question. And my intention was not to push you away from that optimism. My intention was to borrow some of your optimism for myself. And you just did that perfectly. So my last question for tonight. So I know it's not actually your niche, but I would like to know your experienced opinion. I'd love to get to know your opinion on this. Those over $300 billion or euros that I don't know, that Russia holds in European banks. I even know the name of the banks. And Macron said it is against the law to just take it and give it to Ukraine. Maybe, but maybe time to change certain laws according to the objective reality. Maybe that is time came finally, or not?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's time for radical action, including financial, and EU has to build their own strengths and to demonstrate these strengths to the other parties who are not waiting until the EU becomes a global leader. So they are instead evading of failing the EU down with all the policies, trade and economic, as we know. So it's highly competitive, but I think EU can potentially do that. But of course, realizing the difference between the US, who hold much less billions of about 50 billions of frozen Russian assets, and they are quite calm about what happens. They already became insane, honestly. So it does not matter if they go more mad. But I guess for the global community, but European Union has to weigh pros and cons really carefully, but go for radical action and actually really enable this money for Ukraine aid and also rebuilding Ukraine.
Svetlana, thank you so very much. As I predicted, it's a great pleasure, an exquisite pleasure. You're a great speaker. Hope to talk to you very much soon. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, and have a great evening and calm evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Well, that was it for tonight. My name is Henry Keane, and we are UATV English, as usual, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world, for you, directly from Ukraine. Please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters indeed, as it in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Stay safe and see you soon.